Blessings to you, my brothers and sisters in Christ. Previously on the Raccoon Show, I made some jokes regarding the Holy Roman Church. This has prompted an official response from the Pope, so, long story short, I have been excommunicated. Since I'm not an uncultured savage, I wish to redeem my soul for eternal salvation. So today, we're gonna talk about unhinged papal shenanigans in the medieval age. Pope Stephen VI. Pope Stephen VI ascended the papal throne in 896. He's also sometimes referred to as Stephen VII, which I will ignore for my sanity's sake. Papal successions are a mess, and nothing proves this more beautifully than Stephen's own rise. When Stephen becomes pope, he decides that the previous pope, Formosus, got off easy with his death, so he decides to enact one of the most unbelievable crimes ever committed by a pope. He digs up Formosus' corpse, dresses him in the papal attire, and proceeds to stage a trial. Pope Formosus was to answer for his grave crimes, unlike Stephen, who was just committing a grave crime. Formosus stood accused of perjury and accepting the papal seat while still being bishop of another see, which was regarded as a crime at the time. In reality, I'd say this was a political move of revenge on Stephen's side, since Stephen and Formosus backed different candidates for the position of Holy Roman Emperor. Formosus supporting Arnulf, the German king, and Stephen supporting Lambert of Spoleto. Mix this with local Italian politics and you have the recipe that led to this disaster. So Formosus stood accused of these crimes at trial, to which he said nothing, since he was a corpse. But Pope Stephen, enlightened and guided by the voice of reason and God, understood that there could be no trial without a defense, so a deacon was appointed to speak for Formosus, by which I mean a deacon was selected to confirm the guilt of said crimes with no hesitation. Yes, it is I, Formosus. I am guilty, yes. Do not pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
Bruh.
After this display of holy justice, Stephen orders the cutting of Formosus' 3 fingers, used in blessings, and his corpse to be thrown into the Tiber. Even by the standards of brutal medieval Italy, this is horrendous, so it comes as no surprise when the Roman people, aghast with these horrific crimes, began organizing a revolt which deposed Pope Stephen months later. Pope Stephen VI would later be strangled while in prison. Pope John XII. During 10th century Italy, the position of Pope held significant power in Western Europe. Besides being the spiritual leader of all Christendom, the Pope was also the feudal lord of the Papal States, which meant it was a position of both material and immaterial power. Italian noble families wished for the seat to be in their control, and one such family was the Theophylacti, the Counts of Tusculum. In the 10th and 11th centuries, they held massive influence in Italy, and managed to basically make the seat of St. Peter's an extension of their dynasty. This period is called the Pernocracy, which is the coolest name for any period of papal history ever. My God, that is cool. In 954, the Count of Tusculum, Alberic, is on his deathbed, and he makes the Roman elite swear that, upon the death of the current pope, they would elect his son, and so his bastard son would later ascend the papal throne, renaming himself Pope John XII. Now, Pope John was a young nobleman. He cared nothing for the spiritual role of his new position, and, according to several contemporary sources, he turned the Vatican into a brothel. That's where the Pernocracy thing comes from. Pope John is described as impulsive, prone to political intrigue, to military action, basically all the qualities you'd expect from a feudal lord, but not from a pope. He ruled Rome like a prince, not like a pope. Nothing exemplifies this better than when he, leading the papal armies in 958, decides to attack Capua and Benevento, with the plan of expanding his domains. This was an awful decision, not only because it fails, but because it provoked Berengar II, King of Italy, to start attacking the northern territory of the Papal States. John gets a brilliant idea. He decides to resurrect the Holy Roman Empire by offering Otto I, King of Germany, the HRE crown. This was a good plan. It would guarantee that John had a heavyweight ally ready to defend him, while being far away, unable to prevent John from amassing more power locally. Seems like a win-win, except John XII was a little, let's say, unhinged. So when Otto leaves Rome after being crowned, John revokes his title and immediately offers it to Adalbert, the son of Berengar II, the guy that forced John to seek German protection in the first place. Either John is a dumbass who doesn't know what he's doing, or I'm the dumbass that fails to see any semblance of reason or strategy in this. The best I can make of this is that John used Otto's armies to subdue Berengar's rebellion, but was not intent on German oversight to his pontificate. Otto promptly invades Rome, deposes John, and organizes the election of a new pope. John is thrice asked to present himself at trial to be judged for his crimes, which he ignores and threatens excommunication to all involved in this plot to depose him. John stood accused of many crimes, including adultery, benefiting his mistresses with land at the expense of the Vatican, murder, incest, and even simony! As soon as Otto leaves Rome, John begins organizing plots and revolts, and when he decides it's time to come back, he's welcomed by Rome's people. With his seat restored and his opposition dealt with, he thinks he's in the clear, and that's when Otto decides to come back. John flees again to Campania. In Campania, he dies. Now, his death has two versions. He was caught in bed with a married woman by her husband, who strangles him to death, or he had a stroke while in bed with the same married woman. Even though it's only one of two possible scenarios, I'll mark it here just in case. John was in his early to mid-20s when he died. Now, with all that I've told you and so much more I've left untold for time's sake, it's amazing how this young pope, in action and consequence, emulated the Roman emperors of old. This becomes even more amazing by something that I've purposely omitted until now. Can you guess John's name? It's Octavian. Yeah, like that guy. We can only marvel at the squabble these dudes created in the city of marble. Pope Benedict IX. Pope Benedict was the son of Alberic III, Count of Tusculum, so all the context I gave for Pope John XII also applies here, like being an apple baby, all the brothel stuff, inability to read Latin, spiritual incompetence, etc., etc. It was only because of Lord Alberic III's designs that he managed to get elected as Pope. Benedict, in character and action, perfectly emulated John XII, keeping alive the good old traditions of the pornocracy. He ascended the papal throne in 1032, and for the first years of his papacy, things were stable. He basically could do anything he wanted, since his father exercised supreme authority over central Italy. By 1044, his court had become so debauched that even the Roman people, the supreme debauchees themselves, thought it best to revolt and take him down. Resentment towards the Theophylacti family had been growing in previous decades. A new pope, Sylvester II, is elevated and backed by the Crescenti family. Benedict gathers his strength, says nah, returns to Rome, reclaims the papacy, and excommunicates Sylvester. From this perspective, it seems like Benedict is intent on restoring his seat and rule the Papal States, but he couldn't care less, since 2 months later he abdicates his seat in favor of his godfather, John Gratian, who is elected as Pope Gregory VI. This is unbelievable, because there was no precedent for a pope to abdicate, much less for the possible reason Benedict did. There's a rumor that Benedict did this because he wanted to marry a noble Italian lady, and there's an even juicier rumor that he did not abdicate the papacy to his godfather, but that he sold the papacy for £1,500 of gold. Yeah, you heard me right, Pope Benedict sold the most sanctified office like it was prime real estate. Fate would not look kindly towards Pope Gregory, and he would later be charged with simony. There's a whole three-pope situation in here, including Benedict changing his mind and claiming to be the rightful pope while making no efforts to reclaim his seat, but I must restrain myself or I'll be talking about this until the next papal election in real life. To provide a fitting outro to this video, I'd like to make the highly academic point that medieval popes were... They really were something else. These popes were in power when the Holy See had only just recently restored their temporal and feudal power, so their action and brutality is based and conditioned by the political situation in medieval feudal Italy. There's still some popes I'd like to talk about, so there will be a part 2 to this video, but those popes will be different. They will be the popes of the all-powerful Vatican we usually think about. So stay tuned, stay heretical, and thanks for watching.